Welcome everyone to this episode of Perpetual Perspectives powered by Vest Exchange. Vest is a novel perpetual futures exchange built on ZK Sync. This is Stoic, and today I have the pleasure of having with me DocXBT. Thank you for sitting down and having this discussion with me, Doc. Without stalling too much, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. Always an honor to speak to other traders such as yourself. Yeah, I mean, a little bit about me. I've been in markets for a few years now. Background in sports and medicine. I was a tennis player in juniors, went to med school, graduated, and just fell in love with markets during the COVID kind of downturn. I wasn't able to do, my boards for a little bit, had to postpone internship, and then just kind of dabbled in markets, fell in love, and that's where we are right now, man.
Yeah, thanks for getting into that. And I guess usually my first question is a story behind the account name, but that's pretty obvious where that came from. So
yeah, it's actually, if you want to hear a little bit more about that, I used to go by I used to go by a super long name. It was like Dr. Hippocrates MD, because I was going on Twitter, and I was like, all right, I guess the whole meta here is to have like a pseudonymous profile. And I wanted Dr. House, and that was taken. And there's all a bunch of like famous doctors that were taken. So I was like, okay, let's go by the father of medicine. And people started calling me Hippo, which I didn't really like. So I was like, I got to shorten this. And DocXBT was taken, actually, funny enough, by another guy that's in crypto, like obviously. And I actually asked him, I was like, hey man, can I pay you for this handle? It doesn't seem like you're too active on Twitter. And he's like, sure, man, can you do it in Solana? And I was like, 100%. So I actually bought the handle off him a couple years ago, and then here we are.
That's really interesting how that came about. So you kind of briefly touched on your background before getting into crypto and trading. If you could expand on that a little bit more, and also how you got into crypto specifically, how you got introduced to it, if there's any story behind that.
Yeah, the first introduction to crypto specifically was literally like the top of the bubble in 2017. I was in med school. I was home on vacation, and it was just popping off. And it was, I don't remember the exact price, maybe like 10K or something like that. And I'd been watching it go from 10 to 11 to 12 in a very short period of time. And I asked my dad, who's, loosely financially educated, like, what do you think about this? And he goes, oh, it's a scam. It's crap. It's whatever. It's going to zero. And I go, okay, but like, I'm having a lot of FOMO. Let me buy some. And then he's just like, just don't do it. It's okay. And I, got back to school and forgot about it completely. A couple months later, dad texts me. He's like, do you see that it's at 3K? And I was like, oh, wow, I dodged a bullet there. Right. But yeah, fast forward, like I said, COVID, I got really interested in markets. I did the whole, I just explored everything there was in TradFi, like, getting in, I was like, all right, bank stocks are getting crushed. Let's buy bank stocks for the rebound trade. Let's buy, airlines and cruise lines. And then I got introduced to SPACs and SPAC warrants and penny stocks and options trading, and really fell in love with options trading. I think that's why I'm still here. And just like further down, I think it was like August, September 2020. I was like, oh, crypto's still alive. Bitcoin's back at 10K. Well, what's going on here? And I just kind of kept an eye on it. Until I really got that FOMO again. I was like, I've seen this thing go crazy before, and I'm not going to miss this run. Just give me a pullback. And it wasn't until Thanksgiving morning, 2020, I think Bitcoin was right around all-time highs, and it pulled back to like 16K. And I had the Coinbase wallet just like loaded up, and I was like, all right, let's go. We're in. We're buying Bitcoin, buying ETH, and yeah, man, that's a whole story in itself, but that's kind of what got me into crypto is just chasing the volatility, chasing the risk. Like I was always chasing the risk in TradFi markets, and crypto was a whole nother animal. And I always wanted to be part of this place.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And it's interesting you went down the rabbit hole of TradFi and options. Two questions I have for you. So it's interesting. I have a few friends from med school, and they're in, they do options trading. Do you think there's a thing to that being like, I don't know if there's any correlation there. It could just be, an anecdotal thing. That's the first question. The second question is, Do you think my background is in engineering, right? And I feel like that really played into my trading as well. Do you think your background, in terms of going to med school, has benefited you in terms of trading, like just the mindset and how you approach problem solving in general?
Okay, so the first question was around like medicine and trading. I don't know if there's any correlation, but what I can say confidently is that every doctor that I've spoken to that's in crypto is pretty good. Like AV, Schmosby, JD, Samich, Pickle. Like there's so many doctors in crypto, and all of them seem to be doing very well. So maybe there's a correlation there. Um, and then secondly, I would say actually medicine didn't do too much for me as far as being profitable in markets. Actually, I think I was being too systematic about it originally, too structured. And I think when I started treating trading like a sport and being competitive with it,
Hmm.
and really trying to trade for the craft and trade with joy and passion and trying to just get better day over day, week over week, and treat it like training. That's really when it took off for me. So I'd say actually, tennis or athletics carried over more than sort of the students part in medicine.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I want to unpack that a little bit more. But first, what I want to ask you is, what did trading look like for you initially, and where were you getting your information from? I usually ask that because I'm just curious to know how people approach trading when they initially start off, and where they get their information from.
Yeah, all the worst all the worst parts of the internet.
Of course.
Yeah. So man, the first place was like Reddit. Like I really didn't know. I really didn't know where to get information from. I'd always been researching through YouTube. So luckily for me, I found some really good channels as far as education on options trading goes. But as far as like day-to-day information, I didn't really know what circles I should be in. So YouTube, as far as news, is horrible. Reddit, as far as news, is horrible. Buddy of mine was like, "Dude, if you're looking for news and stuff, you need to be on Twitter, right?" So it wasn't until later, like a year later, that I was like, "Oh, I have this old Twitter account. Might as well, fire it back up and start following some people on Twitter." And that's kind of the rabbit hole that dug me down. But yeah, as far as information goes on trading, man, all the worst places are the internet first.
Yeah, and that's a common theme. Whoever I talk to, it's usually that way, right? And I think one of the important things that come out of that is you need to understand, like that's also a process in of itself where you need to figure out how to get good information when you start off,
Yep.
because there's so many pitfalls. But revisiting that point you mentioned earlier, how has your trading evolved since your first trade,
Yep.
and what does that process look like for you from a technical perspective and from a mindset perspective? I mean, they go hand in hand, but I like to make that like a two-part question.
Yeah, of course. So, man, I've really done everything under the sun as far as like systematic trading goes. But my overall progression was first just a positional trader. Like when I came into crypto, like I said, I was predominantly trading options in TradFi markets, and I was on the left side of the Dunning Kruger. We're in a bull market, and I think I'm a genius just for buying
Yeah.
calls on every red day, right?
Yeah.
Coming into crypto, whole bunch more volatility. You're not able to just successfully buy red days. Red days bleed into more bleed into more bleed, right? So I'm looking for different things. I do the pattern trading. I look at Fibonacci's. I start doing, market structure. I eventually learn about ICT, smart money concepts, range bound trading, EMA trading, momentum trading, order flow trading. Like I've dabbled in everything, I would say, from, kind of the preschool types of trading and shapes and stuff like that to the more advanced stuff. So really what my strategy was in the beginning was just taking positional trades on spot. I didn't have any access to futures, and I was just taking positional trades on spot as far as altcoins go, trying to mark out high time frame levels to do business with, buy and hold, look for market structure breaks, sell on market structure breaks. Mildly successful last cycle doing that as far as just keeping capital at the end of the cycle. And then it's evolved, right? The thing that got me to be a profitable trader in the bear market, day to day trading perps and stuff like that was smart money concepts and range bound trading, right? Trader XO, Trader Main. These are the guys that I watched a lot of videos and streams of at the end of 2022, excuse me, end of 2021, going into 2022. And from there, the progression became, well, I'm in crypto to capture the parabola. I'm in crypto to capture the upside. I'm in crypto to capture the strength. Why am I putting a cage on price? Why am I trying to, have this mental model that everything is a 3R trade, everything is a range bound trade, everything is based around liquidity when we see coins do 40% pumps, right? And I was the mid curve guy that goes, well, it's already pumped. All of the Hasaka things that he makes fun of, right? Those are the things that I was in the mid curve trap of in kind of mid 2022. A big turning point for me was the merge rally. That was the first kind of sign of strength that I was that I traded as like a legitimate like full-time trader. And I saw myself just massively underperforming everyone. I was like, okay, who are the people actually dominating right now? I need to go learn from them. I need to adapt some of their strategies. And for me, that was like APG, all the guys at APG, Pierre Crypto, Cold Blood Schiller. These are the guys that were really dominating the strength trade. And so from that, long story short, I started adapting more of EMA style trading, momentum trading, versus kind of keeping a can on things, right? It's the whole like order versus chaos. I started very orderly, and now I've, allowed myself to trade some of the more chaotic parts of crypto.
Yeah, thanks for answering that in detail. And what caused that shift in terms of, like, we were talking about, you were fairly systematic in nature. Like, were you journaling and tracking like how your performance was going, and then shifting from that to looking at trading as a sport, versus like having a lot of structure when you're trading?
Yeah. So what I mean by that, okay, so both parts actually in the latter half, when I switched to a more training mindset, that's when the journaling really kicked off. What I meant was, in the beginning, I tried to understand everything a little too much when it
Mm-hmm.
was like more
Yeah.
of an academic mindset. I was like, I
Right.
need to know what driving price. I need to know
Yeah.
why this pumped. I need to know what the news is today. Like, I was thinking in terms of too much knowledge, right? Too much complexity. And sort of the athletic mindset was just, as long as I'm better tomorrow than I was yesterday, right? That's the progression that I need. That was where the journaling came in. That was where more self-reflection came in. That was when I was like, as long as I'm progressing month over month, everything's going to be okay, right? So both were kind of systematic. I would say one was more of it was just more of a mentality shift versus an
Mm-hmm.
actual like strategy shift, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes, absolutely, it does. And speaking of mentality shifts and technicals, how would you describe your trading edge? How would you describe your trading edge in a few sentences?
I would say I am a trend trader that still respects market structure and price action. I think a lot of trend traders nowadays rely a lot on the trends themselves. A lot of price action traders rely too much on price action, liquidity, smart money concepts. What I try to do is bring a balance to both ideas. That's I don't know if there's a word for that, but that's really what my trading looks like.
Yeah, no, and that's beautiful. I'm a strong proponent of there's elegance in simplicity, and looking at your charts and when you post and how you trade, your approach strips away a lot of fluff, and I mean, what you probably believe is fluff. And obviously everyone has their own kind of individual way of trading, and that depends on their psychology and kind of their mindset. How did you come upon that balance in terms of having the sweet spot in terms of being able to pull the trigger with the information available?
It's a lot of adding complexity and then pruning, right? It's a lot of, let me try this new thing. Let me test this setup. Let me get more feedback. Then let me revert to my data and see which one is hitting at a higher hit rate, which one is performing better, which one suits my lifestyle better, and then really just hinge on those things, right? So that's kind of how the strategy and trading evolves. Like you said, I believe in simplicity as well. I think a lot of us naturally go, well, this person is dominating the market in this way, I should try some of that, right? I need to learn what they're doing. And you do that, and then you get in this process of counter signals. Well, one part of the system is firing red, one part of the system is firing green. Which one do I listen to? And ultimately, you come back to this second simplicity. You see what works, you prune the rest, and you just continue making it simpler and simpler and simpler. And one of the things people ask me now is like, what are your trade setups? Like, someone asked me the other day, can you list your, S tier A, B, C, D? And I go,
Yeah.
well, I could, but what it looks like now is I'm really just taking 2 to 3 setups. That's it. Like I used to have a playbook
Yeah.
of like 15 or 20, but why would I do that if I know 2 to 3 are working better?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
sorry. I don't even know if I answered your question properly. I think I went on a little tangent there.
No, no, I think you definitely did. Yeah, that was a great answer. And what I typically like to also ask is, what is something that you believe that you struggle with most when it comes to trading, and anything that you still struggle with, and how do you go about remediating that?
Yeah, definitely. So the thing that I struggled with the most is still something that I struggle with today. And those are actually two things. One is sizing up, and the second is too much focus on perfect entries or trading around my
Right.
entry, or too much focus on lower time frame versus keeping the high time frame picture intact. Those are the two things that continue to be annoying for me. And with the sizing thing, the way that I've overcome it, or at least I've seen what my issue was, is that I want to take too big of a leap, right? If I'm trading, for example, a $10 portfolio or $10 position, and I'm saying, okay, my capital stack has grown into the 4 digits. Why am I still taking $10 positions? What I want to do is take the leap and go from $10 positions to a $100 position, right? And that leap is too much for us to handle. I think it's too much variance, right? It's too much extreme emotion. So the way that I've gone about fixing that nowadays, last 6 months, last 8 months, is just trickling size bigger instead of taking massive, massive leaps,
Hmm.
right? As the capital stack grows, we naturally just want to just hero it, right?
Yeah.
And that leads me from becoming a consistently profitable trader to going back into being a break even for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then going, okay, I need to size down. I need to get everything back in check. So yeah, the fix for that simply is just, having more patience, allowing it to progress linearly rather than logarithmically, right? So that's number one. And number two, the trading around entries, that's just a discipline thing, right? That's just a thing of like, I need to maintain the outlook, stick to the time frame that I'm trading, not focus because I'm so bored that I'm just sitting here watching
Yeah.
lower time frame charts and getting psyoped out of perfect trade setups on the 4 hour because I'm looking too much at the 15 minute, right? And that's just a discipline and patience thing. And that's going to keep coming up again and again and again every time.
Yeah.
And you just have to remember that, through journaling and at the end of the day and be like, well, I made this mistake again, right? It's another self-reflection thing. Those are
Yeah.
literally the two that just come back for me at this point.
Yeah, those are some great points, and I agree with you 100%. I mean, that's the thing that I love about trading. It's a constant psychological tug of war, right? Um,
Yeah,
you slip up once, and it could cost you tremendously. Like it will slap you in the face quick.
exactly.
And the thing you mentioned, I really like. I've heard this, and I struggle with this initially as well in terms of sizing up. It's also psychological, but yeah, it's if you slowly and gradually build up your positions in terms of sizing, I think that really helps. So we talked about some weaknesses. On the other hand, what would you say are your strengths when it comes to trading?
Um, it's always harder to talk about strengths, isn't it? Right?
Of
Like
course, yeah,
it's always easier to focus on what you're
yep,
bad at.
yeah,
So, yeah, man. Tough one here. Like I'd say the patience probably. I learned that early on is that if I'm bored or I'm just too anxious to be in a trade or I can't sit flat, that's really bringing the portfolio down more than it needs to, right? I need to be comfortable just sitting flat. I need to be comfortable waiting for the high conviction trades, high conviction setups, A plus setups versus just taking any trade under the sun just because I just see something there, right? So I'd say what was once a weakness has now become a strength, right? Through just multiple trial and error, seeing that is a big detriment now has become a big plus point, is that I'm comfortable just waiting. Whereas other people need to take 5, 10 trades a day or a week or something like that. There'll be weeks where I just take 2 trades and I'm comfortable with that. I think that is probably one of my strengths at this point. And probably adaptability to the market. I think there's people that can only trade one meta, meaning, if we're in a volatility compression stage, they're kind of just out of the market. If we're in a trending market, they can't get in. So I've kind of curated my skill set so that I'm able to participate in both range bound and consolidation periods and trending periods. So that's probably, a strength that I've been focusing on building.
Yeah, that's beautiful because I think a lot of traders struggle with that, is the overtrading aspect and being able to sit on your hands. I had that struggle as well initially. And, it's like you said, through journaling, I had that struggle with, okay, I want perfect entries, but I learned that I want to make money in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned with catching perfect bottoms or perfect tops. I'm going to catch the middle of a move. And that's been, like you said, I mean, that's become my strength as well. So anyone listening in, I think this is one aspect that I've seen over and over again, the overtrading aspect, and, not being able to sit on your hands, is an issue that I've seen time and time again.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone that hasn't experienced
Yeah.
that. We all go through the same kind of growth period where you're
Yeah.
just like,
Even
okay,
now,
yeah, yeah.
there's days where I'm
Because we
like,
always just want
fuck.
more, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, because you see something working and you're just like, well, I want more of that. I want more of that. I want more of that. And it's I think it's because, trading is tied so closely to the reward.
Yeah.
Other avenues in life are much more distant than the reward. You're just focusing on the craft, and trying to get better at the craft. And I think in trading, it's like this funny thing where the craft is the reward at the same time. And that's something that's very difficult for people.
100%. And speaking of the craft, so there's this conversation around being a specialist and understanding nuances on a few assets versus trading tickers, whatever ticker it is, regardless. You're just looking at setups. What's your general thought process on that? Do you think that's, based on the individual? And you post all setups all the time. And the other question I wanted to ask you is, how do you filter information and find setups? What's your kind of or process in terms of doing that?
Okay, could you repeat the first part of the question? I think I got a little confused there. So basically filtering a lot of information and finding a
Yeah.
small
So the first, yeah. So it's actually two different questions. So let's just let's just do it one at a time.
All right, all
So
right.
the first question is, there's a conversation around being extremely specialized on a few assets and understanding all the nuances when it
Yeah,
comes to
yeah.
them, right? And then the other side of the coin is just trading the ticker. It doesn't matter what the ticker is, just looking at it. If there's a setup, take it.
Exactly.
Regardless of not knowing what it is. What's your general thought process around that? Do you think
Okay.
that's like very individual in nature in terms of how you trade, and or what's your general thought process on that?
I think there is a lot of edge in trading one ticker versus a bunch, or at least keeping a very small set of tickers that you like to trade. I've seen people that only trade Bitcoin, and they will have an edge only trading Bitcoin because you learn the nuances of how Bitcoin trades. Because ultimately, what markets are, you're trading against other participants, right? So if someone is only trading Bitcoin, you're only trading Bitcoin, you're all going to have a little bit of a different outlook on how that ticker trades versus, like, say, Ethereum, for example, right? There are things that I trade personally. I trade Ethereum way more than Bitcoin, right? And there are things that I've noticed on Ethereum that are unique to Ethereum charts that do not
Mm-hmm.
appear on Bitcoin charts. And I think
Right.
there's a lot of edge in that. I think, the way that I learned this was last year trading Caspa. I traded Caspa religiously. I would say it was maybe 90% of my trades for at least a 2-month period. And I learned kind of the ins and outs of that coin. So I think there's a lot of edge in trading a very small watch list versus trying to apply the same setup to every single coin, and just seeing, oh, this setup has appeared on this coin versus that coin, and it's gonna, and expecting the same kind of outcome. So I do think keeping a small watch list, learning the intricacies of the coin or the ticker that you're trading or the asset that you're trading is very important. Like, crypto's not going to trade like TradFi, right? For an example, and shitcoin A is not going to trade like shitcoin B.
Yeah, 100%. I'm in the same boat as you. And then the other question was, confused with both of them out at the same time. But the other question was, how do you filter information, like in terms of your watch list and looking at alts? Do you rotate? Do you look through like on a weekly basis, or how do you generally filter information?
Okay, so I'll explain how I'm doing it right now. This is like evolved over the years or over the months. So the way we're at right now, crypto trades like in market cycles, right? We're all familiar with a bull market, a bear market, and then kind of like a reaccumulation crab market, right? What I'm looking for is tickers right now that are trading above two key high time frame moving averages, right? The
Mm-hmm.
daily moving averages and then the 4-hour moving averages. If you're trading above both, that's the market basically telling me you're in a position of strength. And I can basically filter between coins that are above the daily but below the 4 hours, right? Coins that are below both or coins that are above both. So I typically want to focus on trading coins that are above both. And I put those at the top of my watch list. Secondly, coins that have narratives, anything coming up. Like right now we have, ETH ETF, right? We've seen that trade be extremely weak, but it's still on the back of my mind. I want to trade ETH beta. We haven't seen them outperform, but it's there, right? That's just an example of trading a narrative. And then coins that are in price discovery. You always want to focus on coins that are in price discovery because the market is more aligned to one side, right? We're going to continue pushing that coin until we meet supply, and having like a price action or EMA system will tell you when you meet supply. So those are kind of the way that I filter coins, as well as like new tickers right now. They're going to be more aligned to the upside. We've seen over the last couple months, anything that gets fresh listing gets kind of a free 50% pump at the very minimum off of listing.
Yeah, 100%. I'm in the same boat as you. Like new coins, especially that go into price discovery, are close to breaking into a new high. Yeah, like Sui's been great. Tia,
Exactly.
Say, those are some great coins that I've been focused on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And then, we had this conversation. We were talking about the adjustments that need to be made in consolidation and in the trending market. What kind of adjustments have you had to make in terms of trading in a bear versus a bull, and how quick was that shift for you? A lot of people struggle with that, shifting from the bear to the bull, and they got wrecked. They kept trying to fade the move on the way up, and I personally know a lot of people that had a lot of trouble with that.
Yeah, so in the second half of 2022, I'd say 95% of my trades were shorts. When we had the post FTX, this is the time where I was really implementing the peer crypto system, was like November of 2022, December of 2022. And I was kind of fortunate that we started flipping some high time frame EMAs on like the 4 hour on Bitcoin out of that consolidation. And that was like, okay, this is my moment to really test what I've been focusing on for the past few months, right? So I was kind of bull aligned for all of 2023. I would say to that point, the tough part for me has been always like going maximally risk on, right? There's always that thing in the back of my mind that it's too good to be true, right? There's always disbelief in my trading. I'm never betting quite enough. I'm always bullish. I'm always bull aligned, but there are moments where I'm like, well, I've seen devastation in crypto. I've seen the bad. I'm not going to put 100% of my chips on the table. I'm going to keep 30% staples. I'm going to keep 35%, 40%. So I'm always kind of in that playing both sides point. And I think, I can understand why people are very skeptical. If you're still shorting in this market, or predominantly bear biased or macro psyopt or anything with equities at all-time highs, I think it's gonna be very hard for you to quote unquote outperform in this market. Maybe you'll perform, maybe you can, still be profitable, but to really get the juice out of crypto, like you're here for the parabola. Why are you on the opposite side of that when it finally appears? It is an irrational market. You need to be as left curve and irrational with it as you can. And it's easier said than done. Like people, people really make it sound super easy, but it's hard to get over yourself and just submit to price. And I think what makes that easier is just having a system that allows you to gauge strength, whether it's something as simple as what I do is like squiggly lines, like EMAs. I think they're memed by a lot of traders. But at the very least, it tells you the direction of the trend. And if you're really in tune with it, you can get very significant risk off signals with them. Combine that with some price action, combine that with some market structure. I think you have yourself, a good system to play strength in crypto.
Yeah, you brought up some great points, and I think the one term that rings true is submission. A lot of people struggle with being stubborn or having an ego, or not being able to take L's. And I think having a process around that in terms of journaling and being able to, like you said, being adaptable and being flexible when it comes to that, I think can pay dividends.
Yeah.
And in terms of performance, what does risk management look like for you? You've kind of alluded to it just in this previous question that I asked you, but has that evolved for you over time, or how has that changed for you? And how do you have you taken any significant loss, and how did you deal with that?
Okay, so we'll start with the last one, right? The significant losses. I think the worst losses I've taken, they're not really losses. They're just stupid things in downtrends. It's just trying to fight the downtrend from a spot perspective, just trying to DCA on the way down, right? And I did this 2 times pretty poorly. One was the May 21 crash, where I got locked out of a lot of altcoins. I didn't have a way to get into those for their 50x's or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, finally they're dropping, right? And not understanding structures are broken, not understanding, this is a downtrend. This is not a dip that you're supposed to be buying. These are crashes, right? These are bubble pops. And just buying the dip on those and having a portfolio, the altcoin portfolio, which is, not a big amount of capital, but at the time drawing down like 80% that summer, right? And then doing it again during the kind of 3AC Luna time, where I had moments where I'm like 35K is a decent place to get back involved as bulls, right? Or 28K or 25K or 24K, and just continuing to try to fight the trend and just chopping myself up in that downtrend, being like, okay, I'm going to step in here and then step back out. Okay, I'm wrong. I'm going to step in again. I'm going to step back out. I'm wrong. And then just, that was kind of like bleeding capital time for me. And I would say those probably were the biggest drawdowns in portfolio, were those 2 times right there, where I just tried to fight the trend. And as far as like a single trade goes, it's the same mentality as like, there was a coin pumping. I actually forgot what coin it was, but it was during the ETH merge rally where I was irrational about it and be like, this scam coin, this stupid coin is pumping too much. I'm going to try to short it. Right. And I just found arbitrary levels of like, okay, over under this level is a short, and then just stubbornly trying to add to the short instead of accepting a loss. So those are the biggest losses. And then I think the biggest change, and like you said, for risk management, what does risk management look like right now? It's basically me constantly evaluating 2 things. And I just consistently ask myself 2 things. Like, when I'm taking a trade, where am I wrong? Right? That's the most important thing. I think Motif had a tweet about this recently, and I thought it was like poetry, but it's like, your job as a trader is not to worry about the upside, but it's kind of just to focus on, where am I wrong? What is my invalidation? And that's something that holds true to me. And any trade setup that I look to get into, the first thing I ask myself is, okay, how do I know I'm wrong? What is the invalidation? Where am I going to be completely wrong in this trade? And can I position myself as close to that invalidation as possible, and get myself a decent RR, right? And the second part of risk management is for the taking profits part. One is for the setups, and the other part is like the intratrade thing. Is what I'm always asking myself is, what is the evolving R of this trade? Okay, like if I'm 80% to my target, am I really just going to sit around with 100% of its position size and hope that it tags my TP in one order? Or am I going to start scaling out here, because the evolving R of this trade has completely changed, right? So I ask myself, would I open a fresh trade here? And 90% of the time, the answer is no. And if I can't move my invalidation up with the trade, and I'm just kind of sitting in no man's land with the target 20% away and my entry 80%, below, I'm just going to start trimming that trade or taking very, very significant profits. So risk management is always just evolving R and invalidations.
I'm so glad you brought those up. I think that's what I struggled with initially, was a lot of that. I used to round trip profits a lot. That was my problem. Not getting that concept of evolving R. So, for anyone listening in, I think that's something to really look into and understand. And also invalidation, being able to cut losses as soon as possible on the invalidation of an idea. Because I think a lot of people struggle with taking L's on invalidation of ideas. They get really stubborn. And that typically starts the downward spiral. And what I've observed is the loss itself. Obviously, you take the L, and that's the loss itself. Does damage in terms of your portfolio. But even after that, it can really lead you down a downward spiral if you're not mindful of taking a step back and understanding what went wrong.
Yeah, the whole revenge trading aspect, right?
Yeah,
you make it all back in one trade after a loss. You get in tilt. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen so many people, like, they take one L and then it's a stream. It's like a stream of L's after that. Because it damages your confidence, right? And then, like, if you're not evaluating, if you don't basically wipe that slate clean, it usually leads to a lot of other issues after that.
Yeah, and I can share one thing. In Q4, this was like the most noisy I've ever seen crypto. It's the most noisy people around me have ever been. It's the most euphoria I've ever seen. So on and so forth. I've seen people's P&L cards that I've never seen before, account run ups and stuff like that. And I became this kind of mindset that like, oh my God, I'm underperforming so bad.
Yep.
I need to
Yeah.
change something. I need to size up even more. I need to take more risk. I need to take more trades. I need to trade more volume. I need to do X, Y, and Z, right? And it doesn't always like that tilt doesn't always have to come from losses. It can just come from jealousy or anything like that. And you just have to stay focused on yourself and your own thing and continue evaluating your performance against yourself and not other people. Because for all you know, everyone could be LARPing, right? Everyone could be lying about what money they're making, and you can't allow that to affect your performance. And there was like a 2-3 week period where I was letting it affect my performance heavily in about November until December. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal point. I think in this space we're so amenable to that because of the social media aspect of it, crypto Twitter, right?
Yeah.
There's so many people. Oh, I ran up $1,000 into like 50 grand over the course of 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
it's easy to fall into that trap, especially for people who are very critical of their performance and critical of themselves. And I think it's like you said, being able to focus on what you're doing, focus on the process, and basically incrementally improving should be the goal. And all this
100%.
stuff on Twitter, you don't know what's true and what's not. So focusing on that definitely can cause a lot of issues. And along the same
Focus on
line, so
yourself, Kings.
go ahead.
No, I was saying focus on yourself, Kings.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And along the same line, so I recently finished this book. It's phenomenal. It's called Mastering the Mental Game of Trading by Stephen Goldstein. And it talks about basically the union of the outer game versus the inner game, right? So the outer game being understanding the market and having, understanding technicals and obviously having a playbook, and the inner game being the mindset and psychology. So how would you say people should work on the outer game and the inner game, and how have you done that over time, and how do you still do that?
Yeah, I think I don't know how to give a fresh original take on this. I think this is going to be some version of something that everyone's always heard. So I think the outer game, as you call it, like the systematic part of the trading, the actual system that you're trading, the technicals that you're using, the indicators, all of that, your routine, your setups. Um, I think you can be profitable in any way. I think you could use you can use Fibonacci's, you can use order flow, you can use price action. It doesn't really matter what you use as long as it's simple enough and you enjoy it, right? That's like the key there. You have to enjoy what you're doing at some point, something that clicks with you, right? And as long as it's profitable, stick to it and have fun using it. And then the rest of trading, in my opinion, is the mental game. I think you could be profitable trading anything, but to stay consistent, it's just a constant challenge of discipline, day in and day out, and day in and day out, of making sure you're executing as well as possible, and understanding that anything in life can throw you off your game. Like I mentioned, like me comparing myself to other people threw me off my game. There's multiple avenues that just happen to be in the mental aspect. Oh, I'm not making enough money. Oh, I'm not going to make it fast enough. Oh, I need to edge, or I need to trade more size. These are the things that we have to tackle day in and day out. And that's really the most important part. And I think self-reflection is what gets you over that hump. I actually have an entire video covering this on YouTube, but it's basically what I believe is self-reflection every day. And it doesn't have to be like a trade journal software of like this is my entry, this is my loss, but it's just like sitting down and reflecting at the end of the day of like, this was my mindset. This is what I wanted to accomplish. This is what I ended up doing. This was my execution. This is why I took this trade. And eventually you'll start seeing patterns of, oh, I'm actually writing the same thing, or I'm actually doing the same thing so many times. And eventually you just feel like you're just, slamming your head against a brick wall and you're not going to make any progress that way. So those are the ways you can self-reflect and make adjustments. But yeah, I agree. Like the entire game is mental. It's really, the systematic part of trading is really just the tip of the iceberg. Being in this game and surviving and thriving for years really just depends on your own discipline and execution and self-reflection. And it's just the whole entire mental side.
Yeah, that's such a phenomenal answer, and I think I agree with that. Is the importance of self reflection And I mean, not even just trading, just life in general. I think it's a good practice. I believe like the goal should be, we're going to be amenable to, falling short or, whatever flaws we have, right? And I think the goal should be the self-reflection part essentially eliminates the time it takes for you to reel yourself back in and understand which direction you're headed in.
Yep.
And there's another really great book, and I mentioned this. I've done like 11 episodes of these, but I always mention this in every episode almost. It's called Best Loser Wins. I don't know if you've heard of that book by Tom Hugard.
Someone mentioned it in one of my stream chats recently. I've never read it though, but
Yeah,
I'm
phenomenal
familiar with
book.
the title.
Yeah, phenomenal book, and it talks about how important it is to be able to accept losses and not have your ego tied to the market.
Yeah.
But what I'd like to ask is, I believe you have a group, right? You have a Discord server as well. So you interact with traders pretty frequently, and at this point, people probably reach out to you for advice and where they're falling short. So I'd like to ask you, what do you think is key? What are some key characteristics for a trader to be successful? And on the other hand, in your opinion, where do you think most people fail to become consistently profitable as traders?
Oh man. Let's do the second one first. Why do people fail? I think that's the easier question to answer. People fail because they're too focused on the money and not the craft. I think we briefly touched on this earlier in the pod, but it's like in any other profession, any other lucrative profession where you can make lots of money, you're focused on the craft. If you're in medicine, you're focused on being the best doctor you could be. You're focused on passing exams. You're focused on, being chief resident or anything like that. Like you're focused on the actual craft. You're not ever focused on the money. Right. You're not thinking, oh, I'm going to do this because of the money. Oh, I see this pay. I'm going to get this much money. Right. And it's same in sports. Like if you're a tennis player, you're training every day and you're like, how do I, improve my backhand? How do I make sure that I can mix it up between the slice and this and that? How do I, I'm going to work on my serve and volley today. I'm going to, structure my schedule so that I'm playing 8 tournaments over the next 15 weeks, right? Those are the things you're thinking about. You're not thinking about if I win the second round, I'm making X amount of money. And I think the reason traders fail is all they're thinking about is the money. They're not focused on the craft and they're not treating it like any other profession. They're simply thinking about dollars, 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 dollars every second of the day. Every trade is dollars. Every win is dollars. Every loss is dollars, dollars, dollars. And I think that is the biggest trap. And that's why people fail. I think if you treated trading like any other craft or profession, you'd do a lot better.
Yeah, I agree with you so heavily. I mean, I think it's about focusing on the process, right? And once you focus on the process, the outcomes are going to come your way. Versus if you focus on the outcome and that I agree with that. I've seen that time and time again, and I think that's where traders struggle the most as well.
Yeah, and I think tying into the other part of your question was like what makes someone successful. I think just joy. Like if you really enjoy what you do in life and anything, you'll be naturally better than your competition. Like if you actually enjoy markets for what they are and you're out here to compete with either a trader, either competing with you, like Magus said this when I talked to him recently, and he was like, well, competing in markets is not really, in the order books. It's like, well, what did this guy do? Can I do better than him? Right? Can I outperform him or whatever? If you're thinking of it that way, maybe that's going to help you out. But if you're here and you're just enjoying every day getting better, or you're just enjoying the markets, or you're having fun, I think you'll naturally do better than other people. And I think that's true for any other profession as well. Is like if you enjoy it, you're going to succeed.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, if you're passionate about anything, I mean, if you look at it as an art and you study it and you're passionate about it, I think you're always going to stay improving and you're going to focus on the process versus the outcome. So those are all great points. And now just to shift a little bit, let's shift gears a little bit. I'd like to talk to you about how the market's been looking. So
Sure.
what are your short-term views? Like we could say the next few weeks. I mean, this is fairly vague, but just to have a conversation on that, and your long-term views. Like, do you focus on the macro in terms of where things are headed as a whole?
Let's stick to the charts because I feel like that's where my that's where I could probably give the most value versus narratives, macro, TradFi
Yeah,
crossover,
definitely.
ETF
Yeah,
flows.
let's
Like
do it.
that's not my bag, right?
100%. Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
it.
so I would say literally until just a few days ago, I don't think even the most bullish bulls thought we'd be at trading at 48K today. I don't think anyone saw this move coming. I think the smartest people, I was in this camp too, is like, we're probably going to range. We're not, this isn't an echo bubble top. We're not going to zero, but we're not also blasting to 60K tomorrow. Like, we're probably going to be in a 3 to 6 month range, right? And the natural place for a, quote unquote, lower high to form would be around that 45, 46K
Yep.
region.
Yeah.
So I was looking at that as a place to risk off. Like, the obvious kind of first 38K tag was a pretty good place. Like, daily 100 EMA tag, good place for relief, good place to position for relief. 45K, which is like the value area high, right? That's a good place to de-risk, right? The invalidation for me was, if we get a spot led move above that value, and it's not a perp led move, and it's not a squeeze, and we're actually getting demand, I
Yeah.
have to continue and submit to that trend and say we're going higher. So
Yeah.
where we are right now, I would say the next logical area would be around like 53K to trade into.
Agreed.
What would get me extremely bearish is if we kind of weekly SFP'd or failed to close above the ETF wick high on the weekly, similar to like last summer, where we blasted from 25, 24K all the way back up to 30, but we couldn't close any weeklies above that prior like April high, right? So I think if that formed, I would be pretty risk off once again. But I'm basically just kind of, I feel like this could be a bigger move, right?
Yeah.
It's tough to say, right? I don't want to give a very high conviction answer one way or the other, and that may sound like a cop out to people.
It's not. No.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I gotta cut you. Like, people should understand. Like, if anyone's talking in certainties, if anyone's saying this is exactly what's going to happen, you need to. Yeah, you should not be listening to those people. It needs to be in terms of probabilities. It needs to be in terms of uncertainties. But I'm sorry to cut you off. Yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah. So I just have a bunch of plans laid around certain levels on Bitcoin as far as risking on, risking off. But overall, like, high time frame picture, like the monthly looks phenomenal. Like, we got ETF flows coming in. Like, there's really no, equities are at all time highs. We have spot demand. It's very difficult to build a bearish argument, right?
Yeah.
All the bearish arguments would just be, well, we lose this level. Well, we're not closing above this level. Well, we're struggling here. But as long as the trends are intact, I'm going to continue submitting to the trends and continuing looking for like strong altcoins to play to the upside. It's very, very simple for me as far as that goes. And like I mentioned, like, if we struggle around 48K on the weekly, yeah, that'll be pretty concerning. But when that time comes, we'll deal with it. And then, yeah, like you said, like, people that speak in certainties, they actually do the best. Like, they have the biggest audiences, the ones that are singular mindsets, and they only say one thing, and they have the highest confidence, and there's no room for error, and it's this or nothing, and they'll just move the line down the other way. Like, if they're invalidated in one place, they'll just take the same thesis, 5% higher, lower, whatever. Those are the people that do the best. Those are the people that have the biggest audiences.
Yeah. And, we can see that in, real time on Twitter. People who do that have like the largest audiences, like you said, they get the most engagement. But at the end of the day, anyone who has spent time in the markets, they will be humble. They will understand, what the uncertainties are in terms of what they say and how they speak about certain scenarios. But yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. Everything that you just laid out, I'm exactly in the same boat as you.
You know what would be max pain? I actually tweeted this out just for fun. Would be if we took that high, took the ETF high, and then took the ETF low, which is kind of like a very large scale version of what we used to get with CPI FOMC trades, where we would create a big Darth Maul, and then over the next few days we would take the high, take the low, and then regain balance. Imagine if we did that right here. Took 50 and then took 38 and then just sat back at 44.
That would be painful.
It'd be very bad, even for me. Like, I would really struggle trading that if that were to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, like you said, I mean, so far I don't see any signs of like fading this. I would not be fading this move right now. Like, I know a lot of people are trying to short right off the bat, and they tried shorting, the move.
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing that spot, spot come in above 44, I had that same idea initially, what you were talking about in terms of 45, 46 getting tagged and kind of seeing some weakness there. But yeah, just looking at, what was going on with spot on Bitcoin, that grind up, yeah, I don't see any reason to jump on any opportunities to fade this move just yet. But it's like you said, if we see something, swing failure at 48, then I can definitely see that other scenario playing out.
Yeah, we will see, man.
Yeah,
It's like
it's gonna be interesting.
yeah, spot is spot. Hold your spot bags. Don't worry
Yeah,
about those, and trade if you're so inclined.
exactly, exactly. And you know what the interesting thing is? If we break through the 50s, man, it's empty space above
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
agreed.
well, it's gonna be an explosive move after that.
You,
So
you,
that's gonna
you
be
know
interesting.
what's funny is I continued to say, because I was in this kind of strong conviction that 45, 46K would be a local top. And I was kind of just saying, when we get a spot bid above that, we're probably going to all-time highs. And that's what we
Yeah,
got now. And I'm in absolute
and
disbelief of where we
disbelief.
are. I'm
Yeah,
like, are we going to all-time highs right now?
yeah,
So yeah, that's where we are. It's like very, very optimistic looking market with a lot of disbelief, with a lot of people sidelined. It could be crazy, but I don't know, man. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, bro, just look at you open up the higher time frame Bitcoin chart and you look at what's happened over the course of the past year.
Yeah,
It's actually crazy how bullish the chart looks, to be honest.
yeah, it is. It is pretty insane. And I don't know how much you pay attention to like monthly charts, and I don't think many
Yeah.
people do, to be honest. To be fair, but like, there's a really strong monthly level at 48K, and just
Hmm.
like a monthly close above 48, like this month, would look insane.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah. Typically, I always like to do this because sometimes you get caught in the weeds on the lower time frame. So I always start from the monthly and then work my way back,
exactly.
just so I can zoom out and get a general sense of things, so I don't get clouded by the 4 hour and the 1 hour charts or anything
Yep.
lower than that.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So we spoke about the markets in general. Do you have any coins you have that you have your eyes on currently?
The short list is, let's see, it was Bonk, Sui, Rune, Say, and Dim. That
Hmm.
was the active trade list for the past few days. It's going to evolve every Sunday. Like today's Sunday, I'm going to rescan the markets.
Yeah.
Near looks phenomenal. I took a big position on Near
Hmm.
in the low 290s. Just because that weekly chart looks like a monster to me. And if I have stables, one of my friends said this is like, it's better off in a good high time frame chart than it is just sitting in stables, right? If you're just going to throw some
Yeah. That's
spots in
so
the market.
true.
So,
That's so true.
yeah. So Near's a good one for that. I like APT on the weekly as well. I like Mina on the weekly as well. There's a bunch of charts that just look phenomenal. It's really hard, again, to be bearish on some of these coins right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's that amazing feeling. And I remember like through journaling feeling the same thing at like 37, right before we broke into that January or Q1 January composite, right? I was remembering feeling like, oh, we've ripped. Like, it's probably a good time to risk off. This is probably where distribution is going to form. And I'm starting to feel that same thing right now. Is like, I'm probably a little bit in too much disbelief right now. Just, continue to ride the trend and
Yeah.
take good quality setups on longs.
Yeah. 100%.
But yeah.
All right. Let's pivot a little bit. I mean, I know you say you don't really like. I mean, we're not specialists here in terms of macro and where
Yeah.
cycles and stuff like that. But just to shoot the shit a little bit, right? There's this discussion on CT, and you can tell me I don't want to talk about this, and that's fine.
No,
But
of
there's a
course.
discussion on CT in terms of this is a last cycle to make it big. TradFi's coming in, the market's going to get muted. Do you have any thoughts on that at all?
I have two theses, right? So one is in line with that of like, okay, maybe the market will get muted. Maybe TradFi will control too much of the supply. Maybe Bitcoin gets tied too much to ES performance. Maybe there's too much correlation between TradFi and crypto. That's one thesis, right? The second thesis is kind of the 2016, 2017 style continue bid super cycle thesis of, look, we finally have spot demand. We finally have portfolio managers obligated to have exposure to this asset class through the ETF, and you're going to continue getting monthly flows, right? If that is the case, Bitcoin is probably going to be in a rapid repricing era, which will absolutely moon things and bring so much excuse me, so much money in the ecosystem that this cycle could get crazier than anyone could imagine. It could get crazier than last cycle, right? That's the other extreme side, right? I'm sitting cautiously optimistic. I prefer the, I mean, everyone would, but like I'm sitting more in that 2016, 2017 style because it makes just more sense. If you're getting consistent flows, if you're getting consistent demand, we should have a crazy cycle. And will it be the last cycle ever? I doubt it. I think they said the same thing last time. They said it in 2021 or 2022 bear market. I saw this a lot of discussion of, well, that was crypto on the main stage. That was crypto's last chance to prove itself. That was every mom and pop and barbershop talking about Bitcoin and crypto, and we failed, and FTX and whatever like that. And we're never going to make it. And that was the last cycle ever. But I think Pentoshi was the first one to have a really big tweet about this and was like, I'm bullish on greed, or maybe it was GCR, I don't remember, but he's like, greed will always be around. As long as there's greed, there's going to be cycles. As long as there's greed, there's going to be parabola. And I think crypto caters to that better than any other asset class in human history. And as long as we are allowed to continue trading altcoins, there will continue being cycles.
Yeah, extremely well put. I'm in the same boat as you. Fear and greed will always exist. That's why we have cycles. And I think crypto, I mean, people don't understand. Like, we're in such a bubble. We're so like, we talk to each other every day. We're just like in this like very niche part of the market where people don't understand what like adoption. Like we're really early. So
yeah,
in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, there's a lot of upside here, and I agree with that thesis. And along the same lines, in terms of narratives or anything that you are betting your money on in general in terms of spot bags and stuff. You don't have to mention them, but are there any narratives in general that you're keeping an eye on? There's a bunch like DPIN and there's perp Do you have any thoughts on perp and any general thoughts there?
As far as narratives go, man, it's tough. There's so much going on in crypto, right? And I think one of my weaknesses in Q4 when everything went crazy was trying to put my hand in everything and try to get exposure to everything instead of just executing the things that I know that I'm good at. But I think like my focus is going to remain on a few things, right? Is going to be high time frame pictures on altcoins, nailing high time frame swings. And then as far as like, breakout trades, any price discovery trades, big breakout of consolidation trades, like Link right now has been a strong one. Sui, obviously we talked about. And then narratives wise, the thing that I'll share this, the thing that gives me the most FOMO, which I actually have very, very little like 1% exposure to, is ordinals and BRC20. I think that can actually be the craziest wealth maker this cycle, just because that little bit of barrier to entry and a little bit of people just kind of confused on how to get exposure. It's so new, it's so crazy, and it's got a loyal base, and I think that is a narrative that people should be paying more attention to, and getting exposure however they can, and myself included. Like it's always at the top of my list, and it's just this kind of intimidating thing that I'm like, I don't know where to be, and that intimidation, that fear, that's what drives the craziest returns, right? It's when people 100%. Have the most confidence that returns are going to get muted, but when there's like confusion and fear, that's what's going to give you the biggest returns. So I think ordinals.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, it's the money that you kind of struggle. It's like those areas where you struggle to put your money into is like where the largest returns are. And I think Bitcoin L2s and BRC20 is definitely, one of those areas where, it's kind of like it's completely new, and you need to kind of like dig into and understand what's going on. But I think I agree with you 100%. Like that's one of the areas that I'm keeping my eye on as well.
Yeah. What was the second half of your question? Perp dexes?
Yeah. What are your general thoughts on perp dexes, and what do you think is holding them back right now, and where it could be in the future?
So I think there's, like I said, disclaimer, I don't do a lot of stuff on chain, so I'm not going to be the best answer for this question. But I think the common complaints are always like liquidity and lack of coins, right? So like, oh, people can't trade size on chain. They can't get good fills. Maybe there's too much slippage. Order books aren't packed. And then probably like lack of options as far as like coins go. I think a lot of perp dexes, and I don't know, you have to correct me, if maybe they're stuck on one chain, so you can only trade Arbitrum coins on Arbitrum chain, and they have a tough time getting exposure to everything. But as far as like my experience, like I said, I haven't traded much perp dexes, but like Probably a UI UX. Like, it doesn't feel like you're
Yeah.
trading on a centralized exchange. It feels like a different, like, muted version of an exchange. So I think if they cross the barrier to like feeling like you're actually trading on a centralized exchange with all that quality, I think you'll get a lot more people trading on chain.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's a general sentiment overall. It's the liquidity and also like the general feel of it because people are so comfortable trading on a centralized exchange.
Yeah.
And so the UI UX really plays into that as well as liquidity and being able to get in big orders on coins and having, assets available to trade on.
Yeah.
All right. So now I posted on Twitter and I'm going to go check if there's any questions because people love being in people's comment sections. But whenever I ask for questions, no one wants to ask anything. So let me, people will go back and forth with you in the comments. But all right, let's see. Okay.
There might not be any because people do get
today's a
to
slow
ask
day
questions.
too. Yeah, people don't want because I'm gonna call them out and then say the question. So we have one person who's actually a friend of mine who there's a lot of questions in here, but okay, let's see. What's the hardest aspect of being a trader?
Turning it off. I'd say you're working for yourself. There's no hours. Structure is a little bit difficult. Disconnecting is pretty tough, especially with crypto. A lot of times I get really jealous of TradFi getting weekends off and they have strict hours during the day. I honestly think the hardest part about being a crypto trader is turning it off, and having a real life and having work-life balance.
Yeah, that's definitely that's definitely a big struggle for especially someone who likes to perform. Like I think that like you said, you have like an athletic background as well, and I think that definitely plays into it. And you have to take some time to understand that and control that. Okay, so the next question here is there a make it number, or do you see yourself trading until markets are no longer profitable / your edge is gone?
Yeah, there's a make. I think you broke up a little bit, but you asked if there's a make it number for me.
Yeah.
There is, yeah. That I do have that mental number for me where I would say, okay, if I got to this, I would
Yeah.
probably stop intra-week trading, intraday
Mhm.
trading, and just focus on being an investor and just focus on can I just do what. I'm not going to have as much money as him, obviously, but can I just trade like Don alt trades? Can I just trade
Yeah.
weekly charts and monthly charts? Can I just take positional trades on majors and allocate a big amount of money, and look to just simply beat the markets, simply beat Bitcoin returns, simply beat buy and hold, by taking a few positional trades every year? I think I would shift to that 100%.
Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned that, and I want to bring back like a certain point because I have like a story on this in terms of the make it number, right? So I personally know someone through someone else who had a make it number this last cycle, and it was on the order of $10 million. Okay, so this person got to 8 million, and now this goes back to the like evolving R thing and also like self reflection and understanding where you are. So this person got to $8 million and basically started taking some bigger L's, and ran everything back down to six figures, right?
Shit.
And so like that's what when I hear people say okay they have a make it number, like I like to talk about evolving R in that sense too. Is there like
Yeah.
okay when I get this close to something, it also gets like there's a psychological aspect to that as well. What are your general thoughts on that?
So I can only speak on my plans for this cycle. I haven't even talked about this publicly, so screw it. We'll do that. I
All
have
right,
a
let's get it.
few. Yeah, I have a few trades. We won't discuss them
Yes, you don't have to get into that,
specifically, but
yeah.
I have a few ideas and strategies as far as the rest of this year and then going into next year, as far as like positions that I want to take, rotations that I want to try to nail, and I have an idea of if I execute and if the market responds in kind, at least within like a 50% variance.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I'm within some kind of that parameter, I'll probably just be comfy and cash out.
Yeah.
And this is not a bunch of different trades. It's just a couple things, right?
Yeah.
And as long as one of the things that I'm more focused on is like a thesis completion trade versus kind of a number, right? So for example, one of the things I got right and wrong last year was I was right to be in the Solana trade from the single digit and double digits, understanding that this got overburdened by FTX. It's going to rebound. It's going to outperform a lot of the top 20 coins, right? The thing that I got wrong was cashing out early and not seeing kind of the thesis completion. I wanted to see people submit back to Solana. I wanted to see people say, oh crap, I screwed this up. And I sold a little too early. I sold that swing a little bit too early before that thesis completion occurred. And like another coin like Caspa, I was like, well, this should run, and I'm going to TP this from a positional perspective once, the same kind of thing. Once people submit to this narrative, when people start asking what this is and looking for beta on that asset, that's kind of a thesis completion trade. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be more focused on that going forward versus the actual number. I think as long as I execute on the ideas and try to cash out when the thesis is completed versus, hey, this is at this market cap, or this is at this, or this is at that. I think that's a better way for me to realize profits.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I see people getting bitten in the ass by that time and time again. Like, it's like, okay, my number is around 10 million. Right?
Yeah.
And
mine is not quite as ambitious.
Yeah.
I think I'll be a little.
Some people really it really bit them in the ass this last cycle too. But yeah, I'm really glad you talked about that. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. There's 2 more questions here. Which do you find more rewarding, winning a big trade or a? Okay, I don't understand this. Or a completing big piece of content. Big piece of content. Okay, unsure on what that question is.
Probably because I do YouTube stuff. Maybe it's
okay. Yeah. So I mean, yeah.
Definitely trades. Definitely trades. So it's the craft over everything, right? Everything 100%. Else is secondary. Everything. Yeah. This interview is secondary. The podcast is the podcast that I do is secondary. My Discord is secondary. People that I try to educate is secondary. Everything first is the craft first, because that opens up everything. Right. If you're a tennis player, like, Carlos Alcaraz right now, your goal is to win as many Grand Slams as possible. The Armani and Rolex and Bugatti deals comes later. Right. Those things are all secondary, and they'll all disappear if you lose the craft. So 100% hitting a big trade is the number one most important thing.
Yep. Makes perfect sense. All right. Last question. If there was anything you could go back and redo, what would it be? Yeah, we're getting these questions.
Buy TIA at launch, like I planned to do. That was one of the things that put me on tilt. I planned this in 2022 that I was going to buy the TIA launch, and I was way too distracted by a million different things going on in crypto, and just kind of put that on the back burner. And then it started taking off, and I never submitted to it. And here we are, 10x higher from launch price. So that's the one thing I would do again, and it's still haunting me.
Yeah, it's interesting because I did this thread in terms of bear market PTSD. Because TIA took off, and I think it was already at a 200-300%. It was around $4 or $5 at the time. And I did this thread in terms of like, bet on the strongest horses, like do not fade this, right? And I was writing that for myself. So a lot of sometimes I write content just to remind myself too. Same. And it helps me improve my understanding, as well as, if anyone else can benefit from it, that's phenomenal. But just writing that thread on TIA, like where I was like, okay, bear market PTSD, this is a strong coin. I need to keep an eye on this, and I need to bet on this. And that's, luckily I ended up sticking to my own advice and revisiting that. So that seemed to pan out pretty well for me, fortunately.
Yeah. I do the same thing, by the way. I do write. I write a lot of tweets and stuff for myself as reminders.
Yeah. People don't, I haven't said this, but that's what I do is some of the tweets that I write are basically for myself. I'm talking to myself. Right. And it seems to benefit me. So, all right. So let's. Okay. So those are the questions from one person, Billy, which is a friend of mine, and that's pretty much all we got. I'm trying out this new thing on the pod. So basically, it's like a rapid fire round. And it's have you heard the book? Have you heard of the book Thinking Fast and Slow? It's like System 1 versus System 2 thinking.
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to say a word, and whatever the first word that comes to your mind is, if you could say that.
Pressure.
That works.
Okay.
Let's get it. All right. Okay. So Solana.
Fast.
ETH.
Expensive.
Crypto Twitter.
Toxic. Noisy.
Bitcoin ETF.
Bullish.
BlackRock.
Bullish.
Meme coins.
Opportunity.
Scalping.
Not worth it.
Trading.
Fun.
Mentors.
None.
Gambling.
No, I don't know, man. That I don't know.
That's okay. That's okay.
Gambling, I don't know. No, that's not for me.
Leverage.
Smart.
All right, perfect. Yeah, that's. I just started doing this. I feel like it's interesting. Getting like that system one thinking going. All right, so yeah, I didn't realize we've been doing this for an hour, but we're coming to the end of this, and I typically like to ask people what their typical routine is, and how they manage their time. What is your typical day? What is a typical day looking like for you right now? What's your current routine?
I'm an early riser. Being on the West Coast, the stock market opens at 6:30, so
Hmm.
I'm trying to be up before that always. So I'm waking up like 5:30 every morning. Internal clock, no alarm. Have a coffee. I do this thing. I just heard on social media it's called like Herkel Turkling or something, where you just sit around in bed with a coffee. So I do that for the first half an hour of my day. Open the
Yeah.
laptop, have a coffee in bed. And yeah, just start reading the Discord, seeing if I miss anything overnight, check the positions if there are any open overnight. See if any alerts went off, check Twitter, check emails, check whatever. And then basically just scan the market, see where Bitcoin is, see how my
Oh,
can relate to.
your mic got cut off for a while.
Sorry.
Your mic got cut off for a while.
Oh yeah, it says I'm getting a network error. I see this here. Crap. Are we
Okay, we can
okay?
hear you again.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
think you're
don't
good.
know where I exactly cut off, but nothing special. Like all the same routines. Basically, check all the Discord, check all the emails, check news, check positions that are open overnight if there are any. Check alerts. See how Bitcoin's doing, and then make plans for the day. See if there's anything on the dock, anything that's nearby that I'd like to see a reaction around. Any levels that we're trading nearby that I like to see a reaction around, and then maybe see if there's any setups. I'm a pretty low trade volume guy. Like I'm not taking 100 trades. I'm taking very few, like I mentioned. So if any of the if then plans that I made for the week are setting up, I'm looking at those. That's pretty much what an average day looks like for me. It's all centered around trading, evening time with a girlfriend, movies, anything like that.
Nice, nice. And we have a doc on the pod, so we got to ask. And this is I try to really incorporate this, in terms of managing stress and health in general. Do you have any
Mhm.
advice for people that are listening in terms of managing stress? I mean, trading is a very stressful endeavor, right?
Yeah.
In terms of resetting and managing stress, what advice do you have, and what do you practice typically in terms of managing your stress and resetting?
So I'm not going to LARP here. This is the most difficult part for me.
Yeah.
I 100% have a very difficult time managing the anxiety and stress of this profession. And the thing that I've found most useful, and this is, I've been an athlete my whole life. I've always been in shape my whole life, until 2022, 2023, where I really just put in hour after hour after hour into this, thinking that more hours in the space, less sleep, more screen time is going to put me head and shoulders above everyone else, which was true to some degree, but maybe a lot of diminishing returns in that category. And I think just taking care of your physical fitness would help decrease stress levels a lot. So one of the goals that I've had the past few months is just trying to get back in shape, trying to get that athletic body back, eating better, sleeping better. My sleep schedule was horrendous last year. Horrendous. You wouldn't believe how bad it was, especially in Q4. And just focusing on do not have the phone next to the bed, right? If alerts go off, screw it. My sleep is more important because it's going to, help me execute the next day. If I'm, restless or whatever, I'm going to make worse decisions, right? So sleep with the phone in a different room. Don't keep it next to your bed. You don't need it. Stuff like that, man. Just be a healthy person outside of your trading, and you will be a healthy person inside your trading. Like I think Dentoshi said it best, that trading is a mirror. It's a reflection of your real life. Your real life weaknesses will come out on the charts. Your real life strengths will come out on the charts. So be a disciplined, healthy person outside of trading, and it'll really help with your stress levels inside of trading. Remember that this is not your whole life. This is just a part of it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up and discussed it in detail. So I think some people that I've talked to have this issue, and I've had this issue as well. Just redlining myself, knowing damn well, like I've been in shape my entire life as well. I work out and I watch my diet. I even have like one of those those sleep rings, the Aura ring that I've been using
Yeah.
for 2 years now. So last summer, I basically rugged my sleep, knowing damn well what it does. HRV messed up, basically everything gets thrown off, even when you don't sleep well for one night. And one interesting thing though is, Doc, that I study people that are successful in every field, whether it's athletes, whether it's people in the business world, people in crypto, whatever it is. And the common theme I've found is that people who are successful, yeah, they look back and say, all right, yeah, I regret doing that. It rugged my health and all this stuff. But there's some period of time where they're very obsessed with their craft to the point where everything else goes out the window.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, I hate to say this, but I really do think it's required. Like there is a period of time, it's a give and take, right? And essentially, if you think about it, you can say it's like there's like a point of diminishing returns, but if you need to get ahead, you do need to do something different for a period of time. What's your thought process on that?
I don't know if that's me coping and saying, oh, I couldn't manage too many things, therefore that's my cop out excuse. I was hyper focused on trying to get ahead. Or that's me saying, I'm rationalizing, oh, I'm able to let go of my health and my physique and everything like that in order to chase this other thing. I really don't know what the actual answer is, to be honest, right? Like maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe I am saying that, oh, it's okay that I'm gaining a little bit of weight because I'm getting better as a trader, right? Or maybe I'm able to do both and I just don't want to, right? I don't know what it is, but I do know at this point, having experienced all of that, that it is doable, that other people do it, that better traders than me do it, that, I'm able to do it. And that was the realization for myself right now is that, working out does make me feel better. It does relieve the stress. It does make me happier. It does release endorphins. Like all of these things are positive. Eating healthier makes you feel better, sleeping more. So all of these things I'm assuming will translate to my performance this year. And that's going to be very, very top of the list as far as a priority in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just playing devil's advocate, right? I mean, there's like this thought process of, okay, like, do you really need to do that? There's a point of diminishing returns. And it's like you said, man, like watching nutrition, sleep is so fundamentally important. Like I see people who don't sleep properly and then they go in the gym and bust their ass. And it's like, I mean, you should probably focus on your sleep before you push your body in the gym. But yeah, those are some really important things. And just coming up on the last part of this conversation, what advice would you give to anyone listening in who wants some blunt wisdom for this cycle?
Blunt wisdom. Don't trade, straight up. I would say if you're already profitable, fine, continue doing what you were doing. If you're not a profitable trader at this point, now is not the time to learn. Crypto is providing too much opportunity to the upside. Don't try to min max. Don't try to beat the market. Don't try to out trade a trending market. Develop high time frame plans, develop conviction in your bags, create cyclical, look for market top signals, right? Create like a list. Last, cycle top had X, Y, and Z. Make sure you're paying attention to those things. Allocate, don't use leverage because, there's a two-part answer, right? A lot of people like myself say that leverage is very important for risk management, counterparty, management. But for the average person, it's just a multiplier on gain multiplier. That's how they look at it. So I would say very blunt answer for people right now is if you're not a profitable trader, do not try to do that at this moment. Try to just simply capitalize on the momentum of the market, allocate and create, top signals list that you're going to listen to yourself in the future.
All right. Yeah, you heard it from Doc. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on Twitter claiming how easy trading is, but it requires a lot. It takes a lot out of you, and learning. It's a very involved endeavor. Let's just keep it at that.
Yeah, I think there was a time and place, right? You had 2022, you had 2023, you had time to develop that craft, and I think now is not that. If you're trying to learn now is not the opportune time.
Yeah, 100%. Are there any Twitter account recommendations that you have, or any accounts that you would nominate for an episode of Perpetual Perspectives?
I guess a bunch of guys that I look up to, right? Pierre Crypto, Trader Main, Trader XO. These guys helped develop my foundation as a trader. Trader Magus, who I talk to often now and still learn from. Mm-hmm. And then a bunch of accounts probably that I owe a lot to as well. Is like the whole APG group. These guys are phenomenal. They're all killers. Like I want to be like them, if anything, right? Like Awawa, Tanzo, AV Crypto, JD, Smojby. There's so many along that line. Man, all those guys. Owen, I owe him, like, shout out to Owen. He's been crushing it lately. If you know Owen, I think it's his handles like Owen 1v9.
Okay.
Ritesh Trades, he's been crushing it. It's probably one of the most transparent traders in the market. Does not get enough love. Who else, man? PC Principal, Blank Brain Trades, Zero, bunch of guys, man. So many people that I think you could have amazing conversations with.
Awesome. I'm gonna get those. I'm gonna get that list of that offline. Like, I want to make sure I get all those people.
Yeah,
I appreciate you sharing that. And is there anything else that you'd like to plug?
Come hang out on stream with me on the weekends over at Twitter. Over at YouTube. Same name, DocXBT. I stream on the weekends. Come hang out. We'll have a good time.
All right, awesome. All right, man. I really appreciate you taking this time to have this conversation with me, Doc. This was I had a blast having this conversation with you.
Likewise, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And before I end off the episode, I'd like to read a quote by Nietzsche, and it goes, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." And it kind of encapsulates parts of the conversation that we had today. So to everyone listening in, I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and until next time.
Beautiful.